I'm your host, Jacqueline DiGregorio. What was once a Quaker-influenced state with heavy liquor restrictions, Pennsylvania now stands as a hotbed for breweries. Hundreds of thousands of green and white decked Pennsylvanians grab a Yingling or Lionhead when they cheer on the birds. With nearly 2,000 bars in Philadelphia alone, it's no wonder beer brings people together. In today's episode of OnUp Innovators, we are featuring Trevor Hayward from Evil Genius Beer Company. His beers are spiked with social impact initiatives, staff traditions, and funky names. But first, I want to introduce my guest host, Ryan Keller. He's a marketing associate at Evil Genius Beer Company, a beer enthusiast with dreams of opening his own brewery someday. Ryan, welcome to OnUp Innovators.
Hi.
So, can you tell us what Trevor's role at Evil Genius is, and tell us more about how he mentors you in your endeavors?
Yeah, so Trevor's one of our co-founders at Evil Genius. He mentors me in pretty much everything about the business. He's really shown me the ins and outs, from being behind the bar to managing our social media page, moving beer from place to place, teaching me about certain beer styles. And I'm also convinced he knows how to do literally everything and anything on Excel, because he always is showing me new tricks in that world. So.
That's awesome to be able to learn so much from such a great expert. Trevor is the founder of Evil Genius Beer Company. He came to Philadelphia to go to grad school from Ireland and met his co-founder, Luke Bowen. With a $460 million beer industry in Ireland, how did you see an opportunity to brew beers in Philly, and how is beer different here than in Ireland?
Yeah, so I moved here in 2008 to go to grad school at Villanova. So prior to that, I didn't have the intention to start a brewery necessarily. I mean, I always liked beer, but I was a home brewer. And when Luke and I met at Villanova, the economy was not doing so well. It was the 2008, 2009 kind of Great Recession, as it's known as. And so we kind of didn't see great opportunities for ourselves after graduation. And it kind of gave us the kick in the bum to maybe do something for ourselves. We've both been pretty entrepreneurial in other endeavors, and we kind of liked the idea of starting a brewery. And we saw a really big opportunity. I mean, the craft beer scene here is, at that point in time, was so advanced already. It wasn't so much as back home. Back home, there was only a couple places I used to really like to go to that would have really good craft beers. But there was really very standardized bar sets at most places back home. It's come a long way since then, though. But yeah, starting a brewery, once we realized we wanted to do that, we really wanted to do that.
That's awesome. It's so interesting to think that even though the beer scene is so big in Ireland, it has a uniqueness here in Philly that made it a perfect market for you to open.
Absolutely. We really liked the idea of small batch artisanal beers. For a very long time, beer had kind of become this homogenized, very generic product. I mean, the most popular style is light lagers, like the Bud Light, Miller Lite, Coors Lights of the world. But people had started to experiment a lot more in the late 90s, and that kind of ramped up into those early, mid to late 2000s, and it's kind of accelerated since then.
Wow, that's awesome.
So Evil Genius is known for making some pretty out there beers. Let's start with the names. You've had beers called Gwyneth Paltrow's Head Was in the Box and Pixar Didn't Happen. I've always thought the names were pure genius. Then I learned you specifically ask your staff and those around you for input on new beer names. Please explain why.
So the beer naming process is kind of a ongoing and changes as we've progressed. At one point we didn't actually have our own brick and mortar, the place in Philadelphia, so we didn't actually need as many names, but now that we have that, we have 12 beers on draft at any given time, and we generally don't repeat them, so we're always needing new names. So once we open that spot, I kind of put it out there to our staff, and we have a suggestion box as well for guests when they come in to drop notes with names. But it all eventually kind of filters back to me, and I go through them and say that one works or that one doesn't work for whatever reason. We kind of have three criteria. We don't do religion, we don't do anything, we don't do sex, and we don't do politics. The three easy ones to stay away from. And it allows us to be very creative in other aspects. We're a nostalgia-driven brand, and what we kind of say is that when you see that name, whatever it happens to be, we want that to evoke a memory of when you either heard that song, saw that movie, remember that meme perhaps or whatever, and then you're creating a new experience when you're drinking it at that same moment as well. So it's nostalgia creating new nostalgia too. So.
What's the strangest thing you've ever put into a beer?
One of the first beers we made at our place in Philadelphia was with a local artist, and we put granite stones into the mash tun. So that was kind of a fun one. We also dumped, I think it was 500 pretzels into a beer one time. So we made a pretzel lager, and we put mustard seeds in there, so that was pretty weird too.
Which one tasted better?
I think the pretzel one tasted better than the granite one.
Makes sense. So your main location is in Fishtown, but you have your beers brewed in Susquehanna. Has this helped extend your reach as a company?
Yeah, so we started out as a contract brewery, and what that is this is pretty normal in most industries. We use another facility to make our beer, but it's our recipe, our ingredients, our process. But when we first started out, we didn't have the money to build a brewery at the time, so this was the best way for us to actually get to market. And a lot of other breweries have started that way. Sam Adams, Brooklyn Beer still does it, and a bunch of other ones around the country as well. But it allows us to have much larger capacity so that when we want to expand into new states, we can do that with relative ease.
That's great.
Yep.
How has the beer scene in Philadelphia changed since you started?
So it's changed a lot in the sense that when 20 years ago, Philadelphia was really known as kind of a Belgian beer city, as in imports of really high ABV and very flavorful Belgian beers, as well as some beers from breweries around the country. And what's happened since then is that there's a lot of new breweries have started up in the state of Pennsylvania and then in Philadelphia directly. Even when we first moved into the city, which is only 3 years ago, there was only a handful of breweries, and there's well over a dozen at this point, probably closer to 20.
As a company that has skyrocketed to popularity in a relatively short period of time, how have you managed to maintain quality through growth?
So quality is always the most paramount thing that we think about as well. And we've over time moved from different breweries as we've outgrown different ones. So the one we're with right now, which is in Pittston, the Susquehanna Brewing Company, is our 4th brewery that we've been with. So anytime we make that move, we always are very cognizant of quality being the most key aspect of that move, and making sure that our beer maintains quality throughout that process of moving. And as we expand, that is something like we have a lot of quality control procedures in place to make sure that every beer that goes out there tastes the same as the last one that went out too.
That's awesome. That definitely keeps the customers happy and just the great standard that you are well known for. So it's really
Absolutely
great to hear about that. So can you tell us a little bit about if you had anyone in the brewing industry who mentored you, or any kind of brewery that inspired you when you first kind of got started?
So I didn't have anyone in the industry that mentored me, but my business partner actually did. He had someone who worked for Sierra Nevada, and he'd known for a long time, so he was very helpful for us. But certainly in terms of other breweries, Trogs, which is obviously a Pennsylvania brewery, is one of my favorites, as well as Deschutes Brewing, which is out of Oregon. And so those were two that I always looked to as the pinnacle of great quality products with really tasty beer as well. So always looked at those as what we aspire to.
That's awesome. Well, it sounds like you are well on your way. Could you tell me what surprised you about opening a brewery and what your greatest obstacles were?
Sure, yeah. So we went in a very short period of time from having about 6 employees to close to 36. Wow. So when you have because effectively we also run a bar because we have this tasting room, so it's a lot of bar staff. So it was a big expansion in terms of the amount of people you're dealing with, and so I tend to handle HR and that sort of stuff. So a lot of paperwork. So that was like a big challenge and change in process as well. But it's been fantastic in the sense that it now allows our customers to come in and really experience who we are, like in our space.
Yeah, that's awesome. Do you feel like that experience helps them better understand your branding too?
I think so, because as I mentioned, we're a very nostalgia-driven brand, so the place is kind of decked out in that respect. The back hallway has Pac-Man on the wall. The front hallway is very Saved by the Bell-esque. All of our bathrooms are slightly differently themed in that regard as well. So we definitely lean very far into that 90s, a little bit of 80s as well, nostalgia.
That's so fun.
Yeah, it really is.
How do you keep up with the competition, whether it's Labatt's, Molson, or local outfits like Victory?
So for Labatt's and Molson's, we don't, because we really don't compete directly with them. Our customers aren't the same people who drink light lagers like that generally, so we don't really compete in that regard. But for someone like Victory, we definitely do. But I think our industry is very unique in the sense that it's very cordial. We've borrowed ingredients from people, they borrowed stuff from us. It's very cordial in that respect, because I think everyone sees it as kind of a David versus Goliath mentality, that there's, even the biggest of craft breweries are still tiny by comparison to the, mega conglomerates of, AB, Anheuser-Busch, etc. So we tend to look after each other because we know we have to maintain our industry.
That's really powerful, collaboration over competition.
Yep.
Do you feel that the customers pick like one brewery, or do they tend to like go to multiple? Like, do you have to fight over the same customers, or do you kind of share them?
I think we share them is probably a better way of saying it, because I don't think, while people have a favorite brewery, they tend to drink, and I do this myself. I go to a bar or restaurant and I look at the beer menu and go, what haven't I had before?
Yeah.
I don't necessarily go, do they have Trogs on? You know?
Yeah.
But if they have Trogs on, I get that one too.
That's really nice to be in such a positive industry.
Yeah.
So I would love to hear more about your mentoring and helping nonprofits in the organization and the Philadelphia community through your events and fundraisers. Could you share a little bit more about those initiatives?
Sure. So we do a lot of charity work, because, you know, we talked about this in the car, Ryan and myself, is that, you know, we don't save lives. We make beer for people who want to drink good beer, but we like to be able to give back in some capacity as well. So we host, we do call it Evil Does Good, and that's our like charity night every week, where we partner with various different charities. We're very dog focused. Philadelphia is a very dog city. Our brewery is very dog focused. We have a brewery dog, and we also have a beer garden that's dog friendly. And so we do a lot of events with SPCA, but we also have two different charities that we do a lot of work with, which is the MS Society as well as the Pancreatic Society, so for research for that sort of stuff as well. So we raise a lot of money every year to help both of those charities, along with all of our dog ones as well.
How did you get connected to those charities? Is there any kind of personal connection?
Yeah, so I have a cousin who has MS. One of our coworkers, her father passed away several years ago from pancreatic cancer, and I actually have a lot of both family and work-related connections to MS, which is like, you kind of have to choose. We can't do every charity, unfortunately, as we would love to be able to, but so you kind of have to pick which one you're going to be like the champion of as much as you can be, and so those are the ones we've kind of picked at this point in time.
Yeah, I love that. I feel like it's this question of, do you want to do like wide impact in a small amount, or deep impact for something that you're really passionate about? So I think it's awesome you've niched down and been specific in your focuses.
Yep, absolutely.
So can you tell us a little bit more about how people can get involved with your Christmas race, which sponsors families for Christmas?
Yeah, so this will be our second year doing it. It's a 0.5K, which means all you have to do is run around the block. So you get a bib, you get a little bag with some goodies, you get a couple beers as well. And the whole point of it is to have a bunch of fun. You get a Santa hat too. But all of the money that we raise from this actually helps us to buy the gifts for, I think this year we're gonna have 2 families, which is awesome, because last year it was so successful. We had too much money to be able to buy all the gifts for the one family that we had. We were able to get them everything that was on their wish list, which is really awesome to be able to do that for a family that otherwise wouldn't necessarily get to celebrate Christmas in the same way that the rest of us maybe get to. So that's really awesome.
Yeah, that's amazing, and a lot of fun for the participants, I'm sure. I hope none of them throw up after running the 0.5.
It's only around the block, so. But yeah, you can go onto our website. We have a link there if anyone wants to sign up. It's a lot of fun.
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. So we want to know, what was your first beer ever, and what is your favorite Evil Genius beer?
Sure. So my first beer ever was a Heineken, back when I was 15. So that was a long time ago. I actually had friends who used to live in Amsterdam, and that's where Heineken is from. And so that's where I got to try that. And then my favorite Evil Genius beer is difficult, because I do love them all, but I think it would probably be Trust the Process, which is our Sixers inspired beer. And it's a New England hazy IPA, which I'm very partial to, and that one is just a really delicious one.
I'm a big Sixers fan, so I'll have to try it.
Nice.
What is the biggest challenge of the brewing industry right now?
It's ever changing. I mean, that hasn't stopped, but craft beer isn't growing the way it used to, and there is still some growth there, but there's still a lot of breweries entering the market, which is great. It's great to have other people help, perpetuate our industry, but it does pose a challenge from a competition standpoint. But as I mentioned earlier, it is a cordial industry, but at the same time, we are all, in competition with each other at the end of the day too. So I think that's a challenge, but consumer tastes continue to change. So hopefully that's not something where they all decide tomorrow they don't want to drink craft beer. I don't think that's going to happen, but I do think that it's going to continue to evolve. It's one of the reasons why we released a line of hard seltzers recently.
Ooh.
And so it's a kind of a different customer, but those are actually people who would be choosing between a Labatt and a hard seltzer. So we're ever evolving our industry and our brands to help continue on into the future.
It sounds like a fun opportunity as a company to be on the cutting edge of the changes in the industry and
it is a
help
lot
your
of fun.
business evolve.
It really is. It really is.
So going off that theme of opportunities, as the industry does continue to change and competition heightens, would you ever consider merging with another brewery, whether it be a similar sized brewery or even a larger brewery to help you compete on a more national scale, or is that not one of your goals?
So I think we do like being independent, but at the same time, I don't think we ever have intentions of being a national brand. I'm not sure there will be that many more national brands just because of the scale of this very big country we live in. But at the same time, you know, we will always look at opportunities when they arise, but we have no intention of doing anything like that in the near future, because we kind of focus on ourselves and think that we have a lot of room to grow just as Evil Genius for the time being before we would need to do anything like that. But you're right, we're seeing that a lot in the industry where, you know, either private equity firms are purchasing one or two breweries and merging them together. We saw that happen with Southern Tier and Victory, and there's a bunch of other ones that have happened in similar fashion to that. So not against the idea entirely, but just not anything on our radar at the moment.
That's a good way to look at it. Open to opportunities, but not aggressively attacking them.
Exactly.
Well, thank you so much, Trevor and Ryan. It has been a pleasure having you here at UIF Rec Studio. To visit the lab in Fishtown, visit the link on your screen. OnUp Media is powered by the Uncommon Individual Foundation, a nonprofit leader in mentor-based learning founded in 1986 by Dr. Richard E. Caruso. To learn more about UIF, follow the link to their website. Thank you for tuning in. I'm Jacqueline DiGregorio, and I'll see you soon.